Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels, and I have a bit of an unusual story for you today. It is some manga, which I'm beginning my manga journey, and I'm very excited about that because I haven't really encountered a lot of manga before. But today's story is all about demons and heroes, I say that in quotes, with giant swords. I am referring to Berserk, Volume 1 by Kentaro Miura, which was published in 1989. For those who don't know, Kentaro Miura was a Japanese manga writer and artist. I believe he wrote the story, and he also did the art for it, which is always impressive to do double duty like that. In addition to writing Berserk, he wrote a number of other manga stories, as well as he supervised some video games that he worked on, and he also I think he had a hand in some of the animes as well, even though I believe the Berserk anime was short-lived. I've heard a lot of great things about it, but I've never encountered it myself. It appears it was short-lived, but it was very successful. And it appears like he wrote like constantly. Even in high school, he was writing, submitting his work for prizes and winning a little bit of it. And he's well regarded in that fact. Unfortunately, he died in 2021, so it doesn't appear that he's going to continue writing. But I think his legacy lives on in the things that he's influenced, and not only in manga, but in grander literature. I think you can see some of his influences in his character design and the story beats that he uses there. So I'm very much enthusiastic in talking not only about Berserk, but also the entire series. I feel like this is going to be the next sort of Sandman follow along that I'm going to do if you want to join me at all. And so, I hadn't encountered much anime before this, or manga before this. Growing up in, Iowa, I didn't really have a lot of anime or manga examples. Like when I lived in Washington and California, now there's a lot of manga and whatnot on the library shelves that I go to. But in Iowa, there was practically none of that, which I think is very, very fascinating. And really, I only heard about manga once I started dating one of my fellow high school students, and in high school, of course, because she was in anime. But I thought that was nerdy and weird, and I now realize that I was a bit of a dumbass there. Let's talk about Berserk. Spoiler, I really enjoyed it, but I'll do a summary, a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. So Berserk begins by following a man we only see as the Black Swordsman. We know him as that initially, and what's really funny is we see him as sort of a tone setter for the rest of the series. It begins with him basically having sex with a demon, and it's like that pretty much tells you everything you need to know about this character. But the Black Swordsman is wandering from town to town. He enters a castle town, and he watches as a group of mercenaries from another castle are throwing swords at an elf creature named Puck. For unknown reasons, the Black Swordsman intervenes and saves Puck, but doesn't seem to want to hang around Puck, merely just standing up for them and killing these mercenaries from Koka Castle. And the Lord Mayor of this castle is upset because Koka Castle has basically been under the thumb of this kingdom, so they worry that the Koka Castle will retaliate, and so the Lord Mayor goes after putting Guts and the character of Guts in jail, who we find out is named Guts. They put him in jail, and he says, "Oh, we're here to apologize. That guy didn't know what the deal was, and we'll make sure he never interferes again." But the sort of ruler of Koka Castle says, "Hey, I know exactly who that is. He's on my shit list. I'm going to kill him." And so at that point, the apostle, as he's known, attacks the other castle and kills a bunch of people. And Guts gets out and manages to fight this apostle in a grand and beautifully depicted battle in the manga. And despite the fact that the apostle manages to hurt him quite a bit, and it appears that Guts is near death, Guts manages to get the upper hand, and we learn that he's trying to kill other apostles as well. And he manages to kill this particular apostle before he moves on to other battles in the world. And we also learned that he's being pursued by demons at this time because of a brand on his neck, although we don't quite know what that brand is or who put it there. Did Guts put it there, or did somebody else put it there? Guts continues to travel, and Puck follows along, although Guts does not like Puck. Puck wants to learn more about who this person is because she senses so much hate and sadness within him. I say she, but I don't actually know Puck's gender at all. But Guts manages to find a priest who's traveling with his daughter, as well as Puck, who is tagging along. But Guts at first doesn't want to travel with the priest because he only brings danger around him. But the priest insists, and after they travel for a little bit, they stumble across a bunch of demons who reanimate a skeleton army, and Guts has to fight this skeleton army in a massive battle, which again is very beautifully depicted. Unfortunately, the priest and the daughter die in the process, and after Guts manages to slay the entire skeleton army, he sort of laughs about their deaths, saying they were weaklings, and that he shouldn't concern himself with ants if they get killed in places where they don't belong. And so Guts continues to wander after that. He arrives in a town where there is a count who is executing people he views as heretics. And Guts picks up one of the heads of the heretics that have been beheaded, and they have the brand there. I don't know if Guts put it there or if somebody else put it there, but the soldiers aren't happy with him interfering in this town. And so he begins to fight a couple of the soldiers, including larger soldiers, who are really no match for his extraordinary prowess and his ability to use a large sword. He's eventually rescued by a townsperson once the soldiers don't stop coming, and the townsperson hides him and just ask him to defeat the Count, who they say is a demon, and Guts seems to be willing to defeat this demon. And as the story comes to a close, the townsperson shows Guts a bayonet. I don't know what that is, but that's where the story ends there, and presumably will be continued in the next volume. In terms of analysis, there is a little bit worth talking about with Volume 1 of Berserk. One of the big ideas that I think Miura is getting at, and whether or not this is intentional remains to be seen, is that of nihilism. And it's very well possible that I could be overanalyzing this, but I'm choosing to believe that regardless of whether he intended, this is there. There's a sense of nihilism. Because Guts seems, and I put seems in quotes, he seems to care about nothing apart from himself. The outside world doesn't seem to matter. The only thing that matters is demons, and that's because he can kill them and get rid of them. According to him, people are just ants. He says that about the priest and the priest's daughter. Once they die, it's not his fault if they die. They're insignificant, and if they can't survive, that's just. They're just weak, and there's nothing he could really do about it. There also appears to be nothing beyond for Guts. No inherent meaning in life. There's just life, and then there's nothing afterwards. We all appear to be just suffering. There's a good quote that I would like to read to you from this. He died doing what he wanted, no matter what, right? I bet he was happy. Of course, once you die, that's it. Nothing comes after that. Nothing at all. And he says that, one, to a priest, but also when the priest talks about someone that he loved who went to war and died, and how foolish that was, Guts says, no, he was happy doing what he wanted, and after he, sure, he may have died, but he died doing what he wanted, and who cares what comes after, because there's nothing. And the fact that he's saying that directly to a priest who probably believes in an afterlife, it seems significant. He's directly saying there is no God, there is no heaven, there's only what you have on earth. It lasts for a brief amount of time, so you might as well be happy because nothing comes after that. It's very hollow, very sad sort of perspective to have, which certainly allows you to go on killing without and letting people die in the process without consequence. But that's the sort of perspective that Guts has, and I do think to some extent Miura intended this, because when you say that to a priest, it doesn't feel accidental there. Like, it definitely feels purposeful. And other people, like in the story, are disturbed by Guts. Like, Puck doesn't know what to make of him, especially because Puck is cheery and seems to believe in something greater. And other characters who look at Guts and try to get him to see another perspective realize that there's nothing there in Puck, or nothing there in Guts. Like, there's nothing. Like, he truly believes in a nothingness, and it disturbs them so much that their only response is to put him in prison or kill him or to ask him to leave, because it just so contrary to what they might believe, that when you encounter someone who is a hollow hole of nothing but pain and violence, it's hard to be around that sort of person. And you can see how the demons only seek pain. Like, the demons don't care about humans. They only want a fiery apocalypse. The apostle specifically says that. And then you have this, again, in contrast to Puck, who is cheerful and seems to believe in something greater, and knows that maybe Puck isn't just that nihilistic sort of monster man that he makes him out to be, that there might be a little bit more. And that's a great question. Like, is this all a facade for Guts? I think to some extent, yes, especially because Puck notes, like, when apparently she has the ability to sense out emotions or whatnot, like, she reads them and she's like, oh, there's nothing there but something deeper. There's like sadness, grief, and anguish. And I think what later volumes are probably going to show is that Guts has been wronged so many times in life, and he has that brand on his neck. So maybe he's maybe he doesn't allow himself to feel, because if he feels, it's only going to bring him more pain and suffering. And so when he says, like, oh, there's nothing in life but living and then death, and when he says something like these people are weaklings, maybe he has to tell himself that, because if he believes anything else, he'll go insane, especially with the number of demons that he has to fight on a regular basis for uncertain reasons. Another thing I really love about this story is how I got the feeling that it is it's a Japanese Western. And I don't think it's just a feeling. I think Miura fully intended this, that this is a Western set in maybe an apocalypse-like landscape in Japan with demons. Because you could argue that it's very similar to, like, The Good and Bad and the Ugly, with the story of the man with no name, played by Clint Eastwood. You have Guts wandering from town to town, righting wrongs, sort of. I don't think it's fully intentional that he's righting wrongs. Like, he just sort of does it because he's annoyed with the demons he's facing, or he just feels in some way that it's not very just in how they're treating other people, as is the case with Puck. And so that it's very similar to that. And then you have these showdowns between Guts and the demons, and they're fighting swords. So it could be very well be like something of a samurai story as well. But I do think there's elements of a Western and a gunslinger aesthetic, where Guts is wandering around, and you're not quite told enough about Guts to be sure of who he is, but you know that he's somewhat on the side of good, or at least he's not on the demon's side. And I like how Miura manages to create that atmosphere, really using mostly images, using the art, because there is some writing, but Guts is a man of few words, so you have to convey what you're trying to say through his facial expressions, through his silence. And there are other things that I like about Berserk, including the cool art and the fights, which you see throughout this video. I do think that comic books and manga in general, like, they have to convey the fights in a very interesting way, because it can't just be two characters fighting. You have to show that people are in danger, and it does seem like Guts is in danger, even though he has a very powerful sword. Like, these fights convey that the demons are very strong, and Guts is barely, he's lucky to even make it out alive. And like, these fights feel significant, not even though there's a couple of them through here, each one feels different, and it really adds to my overall enjoyment. So very good on Miura to portray these fights in such a significant way. And I also think Guts has a very cool character design in general. Like it looks different. And again, like this is 1989, so there might be other characters who look just like Guts in today's world. But again, that's the influence of Guts, of Kentaro Miura, because he managed to really present a fascinating a fascinating character, who, like, sure, he's like there's a bunch of sort of chaotic good, or maybe not chaotic good, but sort of vigilante like people who aren't quite heroes but aren't evil at all. But again, that's the influence of Miura's writing over time. Of course, like there are a couple of problems as well. Miura gives you as little details as possible about Guts, and I get that might be further explained in future volumes. But for here, I do have a lot more questions about Guts, and I'd really love to learn more. But maybe that's the hook that keeps you wanting to read more and more. But there are just general questions about how any of this works. Like for the brand on his neck, like who put that there? Why does it attract demons? And how does the sword work? And how did Guts get to a point where he's able to wield such a powerful and seemingly heavy, like, block of iron, as they call it in the book? That's a lot of questions, which I know will be explained in future volumes. But for the purposes here, I would have liked a few more details than Miura is willing to provide. And that's the only frustrating element. But I realized that if he provided everything here, there wouldn't be a reason to read future volumes or something like that. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Berserk Volume 1, a really, really cool and very entertaining piece of manga. I definitely recommend it to you, though, to you out there if you're interested in reading some manga and you want a fascinating start. However, it does feel a little bit edgy, and it feels a little bit adult, so it's not for everyone. But if you're willing to, get invested in a very violent and bloody type of story, Berserk will be the one for you. If you have any comments about this, or if you read Berserk before and you want to let me know what I'm in for, comment below and let's have a discussion about this. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want to, spread the word about Berserk and Kentaro Miura. Or you can join the Discord and we can have further conversations about Berserk as I move through the series. But until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and large sword-carrying travels. Farewell.